Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jeneth Blackert,
And I'm Bianca Reina.
and this is the Haute Hustle Morning Show. Today, we're talking with Maisy Bristol. She's an astrologer and a really good one. And we had a recent conversation, and this week we're bringing back the best of the best. I hope you're ready to get your astrology on with one of our favorites.
So, hi everyone. Good morning. One of the things about having an astrologer on is the need to feel like there's so much to talk about when it comes to space weather news. And of course, they know best as far as, and I don't really do astrology in the space weather news, but I also love to include the things that are going on around us. And so it'd be really fun to have her kind of chime in and talk about some of the changes that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
With that, a little segue in today's Mystic Space Weather News. Solar storms are driving farmers crazy. Isn't that great? Isn't that
Funny.
cool? Planting season is a hectic time for farmers, but for many, it means working through the night using GPS guided tractors to plant thousands of acres of short period of time. But this time, the season was in full swing in May during the time of that big solar storm. So we reported on that a lot. And then it said that some of the farmers were saying, like, our tractors were acting like they were possessed by demons. Space weather, as they reported to spaceweather.com, is it also says that Aurora Chaser said that they had to help family farms out in northern Minnesota. And one person says, all my cousins called me during May 10th storm just to tell me that my Aurora was driving them crazy while they were planting their farms. And so basically all of the things that are like hooked up to the GPS and everything like that was guided by satellites were getting veering off track. They were stopping. They were going off course. They were cutting the wrong things. So you see how just on a smaller scale, that storm really messes with the GPS and satellite system. Imagine if we had bigger coronal mass ejections, that would cause more headache and havoc. That's the reason why we would have some unrest, if you will. So one of those things that I always say is just be prepared. Always have a backup plan to your cell phones and regular GPS guidance systems. Maybe you have like a regular, AM, FM radio that you could turn on and connect with people. Get more information if something like that happens. Not to try to be a prepper or anything, but always have something ready and available because CMEs are on full effect right now. Yes, we have some more solar storms. We're still in that peak right now. Since some of the solar storms are Earth facing, we will get some of those higher X2. And we saw one just the other day, X-class solar flares. And those are the ones that really create havoc and can mess with GPS systems. One more thing I wanted to read from Mystic Space Weather News is
I have so much to say today.
I'm excited. We'll check in with you in a second. She says, massive DNA upgrades. This is from Sparks of Divine Light on Instagram. She says, massive body upgrades. The Ascension systems are upgrading the DNA system and co-creating the frequency in the body to align with the vibration of the new energy for 2025. She says, my fractal parts and ancient coding is being developed in the body and activating new energies into the coding system. We've been talking a lot about this, right? The DNA upgrades also come in the form of these CMEs and the blast from the earth. We're being upgraded as the earth, as the sun, the blast from the sun, as the sun is just peering down with so much light and changing and really upgrading our DNA. And it also says, particularly in the nervous system, this is the reset button for many who haven't had the physical upgrades yet. This is allowing the full integration of the divine system to align the energy to create a new wave of leaders. Woohoo! Rest.
Hydrate.
Take the energy and start listening to the body. You're expanding into the heart-centered and aligning into this 5D frequency. If you are feeling tired, rest. If you're feeling out of sorts, that is part of the solar maximum. It's all been documented and science shows it. Just know that you're not alone. That's what I got from Mystic Space Weather News.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are we still the third rock from the sun if Pluto is no longer a planet?
So here's the funny part. Oh my gosh, I feel like there's so many better questions that we could be exploring. I feel like this is the equivalent of Jessica Simpson when she was like, is the tuna fish the chicken of the sea? got put on blast, so I'm not going to even go there. And I'm not trying to get put on blast.
You guys, as some of you know that have been hanging around, I've recently gotten two new kittens. And I was sharing with the team yesterday that I was meditating in the morning. And when the meditation was like, your heart, connect to your heart, it's Joe Dispenza. And all of a sudden, when I'm really into this, like I am nowhere and nothing, and all of a sudden, this little cat about this big comes and makes this tiny little circle right at my heart and just starts purring like crazy.
So the cat laid on you.
And I was just, oh my gosh, it was such a moment. I came out in tears and told my husband, this is a little validation that something is happening here during these meditations, right? That they can sense that. I just thought it was the coolest thing in the
I
world.
do think so. Dana says cats love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean,
do
you
that.
gotta, I mean, it's, you know, makes it really clear that this is a fifth dimensional energy that's beyond the body. How many times have people said that your body is in you, you are not in your body?
Yes.
And
Ooh.
the more we have these conversations, it becomes clear that it's even beyond your aura, that you can be out as far as you want to go. I just think it's so freaking cool.
Yes.
And the more that I do this work and you can validate it in your world, nothing ever happens by accident. And it truly is guided, even through quote accidents. I really feel like those are moments when you are supposed to stop and look and become aware of like, I lost my present moment. I was daydreaming. It
No, I
could
mean,
go
you're
so
on
many
it.
different ways.
Yeah, no,
But it
you're
could
on
also
it.
be you're just on the wrong path entirely.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to bring that up. You've been gone and had a Miami trip. We
I
want to
did.
talk about.
What's really cool about the trip is that I got the opportunity to be with girlfriends and we did the whole spa and self-care thing. I dressed up, had lovely dinners, and really just a time for us to get away, laugh, and be silly, and really just love on ourselves for a little bit. What I thought was really cool was that there was so much more spirituality, like a lot more than they ever had. And it's not just with me, it's just how they are operating nowadays. They're talking about their lives and how they brought spirituality in and how they approach different things, especially Chiron, the wounded healer. That whole notion of the healer being more empathic and taking on other energies. I thought that might be something we could bring into the show again and talk about how we can send stuff to the light. It can be super simple. One of the speakers we had on was Karen Tobias, and she says, with our new DNA upgrades, we can do this super fast. We don't have to go back to the trauma and drama and relive and hash out what happened to us. We simply can know that if we're having some off thoughts, that they're not ours, we can send them to the light. And I know it sounds really simple, but maybe sometimes when you're taking on the stress of everyone else's, like during the holidays, that might be an easy reminder. That might be something that we could easily just, okay, sending this to the light. Go to the light. Go with yourself. That way you're not taking on that energy and you can just cut the cords as well. So I just thought that was a really fun little PSA, but great to have that time. And then we all kind of laughed because it's like, as soon as we had that time, then it was like, I'm ready to get back to, the kids, the family. You have that little bit of space and you miss them. Usually I miss people before I even leave. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I like my life. I mean, it's pretty awesome. And I feel like even this year, this show has made it more awesome from the things we've learned. I was thinking back to our show a little bit ago and how much I have changed just this year because of the show. And there's also been things that I've said I was going to do that I haven't continued to do. Like test my home.
I'd like to do that still.
Sure.
It just is so much extra effort that I really, I really like, no, this is my main focus. I really have to stay in this one line. Alyssa Rushton, she talked about, I wanted to really just say, I'm going to continue to do that. And it just didn't really work into my schedule when
I do it
did up top.
sometimes,
Yeah.
but I do have to say I'm kind of guilty. Like I'm like, do I get up and go do that or do I sleep in a couple extra minutes?
Yeah.
And it's funny because you know that it can really benefit. Well,
Yeah.
so maybe not beat ourselves up, maybe like every other day or maybe every third day. As long as
It's
we're
like
working it into the schedule.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's better
Absolutely.
than no and then saying, I didn't do it.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Valentina, based upon the conversation was saying earlier, brushing the garbage off of you is a great idea. Be gone.
Yeah.
She said with exclamation point.
I heard what a speaker once say, you take a shower every day or
Yeah.
every couple of days.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you brush off the psychic debris?
Yes.
I think that people feel it sometimes at the beginning of your awakening, you feel that you're being hurt or attacked or demons are coming in. And as we grow, we realize, wait, we have the power. We have the choice. We're in the body.
Yes.
This is our domain.
Yes.
And you don't get to attack me. You don't get to hurt me. You don't get to make me suffer.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have that choice or that possibility. And I think once you really acknowledge that and acknowledge yourself and the power and the joy of it all,
Yes.
you really go, okay, I have it. I can be this. And I am a no entity zone.
I love that you brought that up, Jenith, because we had talked a little about that.
Mhm.
And that power you give yourself back is, it has changed my life so much.
Mhm.
Whenever I realized that and really got it in my bones that I'm the person here having the human experience. This is a no entity zone. You don't get to come up in my space.
Mhm.
And I've owned it.
Yep.
Sometimes I put white light over it. Sometimes I'm like, send it to the light.
Yeah.
I know that I am so wholly protected because, and not that I need protection, but that I imagine and envision, I know that I am. Just reminded, and maybe just because we're humans, we have so much fear that reminding ourselves is needed.
Yeah.
But I know that for me, it was a game changer. Like
Uh-huh.
even in the show, even though the last year, I've become so much more empowered by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to check with Macy and see where she
Sure.
would be? I didn't see her hop on the line
Okay.
yet. One of the things that brought up was I feel that some people go out of their way to prove how spiritual they are. And I don't know what that is necessarily, but they've got all these rituals that they have to do in order to just be okay with life. I'm inviting you to a world where what if you don't have to do anything other than invite in a light energy to change it, right?
And
Send it to the light.
Yes, possibilities. Yes.
Occasionally get a massage. All right, I'm bringing her on. Hey, Macy, you're muted.
Hi. I hadn't said anything yet. Hi.
We're
Morning.
really excited to have this conversation because I have a lot of questions. And now that I have a little bit more information than our first conversation, where I almost didn't know
Right.
what to ask.
I'm glad that we can meet up again so we can get a little deeper into astrology. And
Definitely.
Yeah.
I know I brought up a lot of stuff originally, like
No, it's
throwing out
good.
terms and things, and I'm sure it was a lot of information all at once.
When I was looking up Chiron yesterday and reading about it, really Chiron is the wounded healer. My brain went in 101 different directions on what that meant. And I was wondering if we could start this conversation there as what is Chiron and really what is this meaning of the wounded healer and how can it support us, I guess would be the third question, although I think that's going to run a little bit deeper.
Yes, we can cover all of those one by one. Chiron is an asteroid, And it is associated with this archetype of being the wounded healer. In Greek mythology, Chiron was a centaur. Centaurs were usually brutes, and he was integrated into this royal system with the gods and the goddesses. He became an elevated brute among the other centaurs who are still out there in the wild, running free, crazy. So he ended up coming into this world feeling a little bit abandoned and unknown. He had wounding in his own respect. He got hit with a poisoned arrow. And since he's a demigod, he couldn't die. He was just wounded and had to carry this wounding, becoming a healer for other people. That's where the term comes from, the wounded healer. He was able to heal others without healing himself. That was his destiny. It does denote a bit of what humanity is, which is partial suffering and partial healing. And we all carry something that we continue to suffer from. What Chiron represents is this shame narrative that we carry with us from childhood into adulthood, and that we're challenged to unlearn or uncondition ourselves from believing. The more you work on that, the easier it is to start making healthier choices for yourself and stop the self-sabotage, but you still carry it with you. So regardless of how much you heal yourself, it is still a part of you. Part of what Chiron is both accepting that and working with it at the same time. It is part of you.
So would we say that that would even then be flipped and become actually his gift? If he was wounded, the gift was that he could heal.
Right. A lot of what Chiron represents is that shame narrative, or whatever narrative you carry, is actually something you likely already give to other people or have an innate ability to reach people in that way. Yeah. Everyone has wounding in a different way. Your specific wounding can help highlight other people who mirror that for you. And we do this automatically. This is something that we naturally gravitate toward, but understanding what the narrative is and how it translates into our personal life can help us tap into that gift more and find healing. I just did this in my program, this specific workshop on Chiron of the gift. I actually have this phrase pointed out in this book. So I I might read it actually.
Yes, please do.
Perfect timing.
Love this. Divine guidance. Love it so much.
Happened. This book is by Melanie Reinhart, and she is the Chiron leader. She's an astrologer who's devoted her life to Chiron, much like I assume I will be doing with my life.
That way, right?
I've become a Chiron nerd, absolutely. Anyway, I read this passage to the group the other day. It explains the idea of Chiron being the wound and the gift. She says, Chiron symbolizes things that we can do for others, but which we may not be able to do for ourselves. The mythological parallel is clear, as Chiron could not heal his own wounds in spite of being able to heal others. But she brings in some examples of how this might play out in the chart. For example, sometimes those with Chiron in aspect to Mercury, being the planet of communication and thought, can bring order and clarity into any situation except their own thoughts. Everyone except themselves may consider them intelligent and original in their thinking. With Chiron in the first house, which represents our ego and identity, many people feel they lack personal willpower, not realizing how strong they appear. Or a woman with Chiron conjunct Venus, which is the planet of beauty and love, had always felt she was ugly, though admired and envied by others for her beauty. So she calls this Chiron gift portion our blind spot, the Chiron blind spot, which I think is so apt and relevant.
Well, how come is it?
We can continue. I'm happy to answer questions.
Whenever I'm with you, I feel tongue-tied. It's almost like a totally different space than we're usually in.
So, which is great. That means there's so much here for us to explore and learn.
The question I want to ask is, how do we apply this individually? Is there a way to apply it individually? How does it help each of us here on planet Earth change, heal, grow, evolve? I think that's the question reeling in my head.
The ultimate goal with all this information is, once you figure out your wound, you can figure out your gift. And once you realize what you're already doing, you can apply those healing aspects you're already giving to other people to yourself. There is some aspect of self-love and self-worth that we can provide for ourselves, because at the end of the day, Chiron represents the childhood experience, right? And so at some point we were lacking something. Only later, once we've learned how to heal, we can give ourselves that thing we were lacking before that we're already giving to other people. So there is some reparenting aspect to it, being your own mother, your own father, whatever you didn't have. That's the ultimate goal with Chiron.
That is something you do in your particular work. What have you seen has some of the benefits of doing that type of integration and reparenting? What are some of the monumental changes people can expect?
Yeah, honestly, a lot of our habits and patterns stem from this rooted belief that we are either not worthy of something or lacking in some way. We are having this void that we need to fill. By working on this, we realize that we've been carrying the agency to do this all along. And it really helps people step into this zone of empowerment and self-worth so that they can make different changes or different patterns than they were already rooted into. A lot of what we do is so conditioned and automatic at this point. We talk a lot about neuroscience and how the brain works,
which is
habits.
Great.
Part of those neural pathways were established as early as age 5. You've been in this routine on this same train track since then. And so part of the Chiron work is understanding that you have the power to do this on your own, that you have the power to give this to yourself. And then once you uplift yourself like that, we use science-backed tools to help you make the changes.
Got it.
So it is astrology based. That's where we get to the root of the problem or what you were brought into this world to understand or accomplish or do. And then we use those techniques to help you go from point A to point B in a step-by-step process. It's a 3-month program. Cool. Over the course of the 3 months, we meet 11 times, and then you have 1 week where it's just one-on-one with me. There's a lot of contact with me and with the self. Even though it is a group program, it's very solo-based. Everyone's journey is different. What I've seen as a result of all this work has been so phenomenal. Being able to really take people out of the perspective. Part of what gets us stuck is that we don't know what to do when we come into this program and have different tactics, methods of looking into the self. It opens up other doors that help you remember certain things you forgot about in childhood or connect with those things in a different way, because as a child, that's a normalized thing. As an adult, you realize that probably shouldn't have happened that way, or wow, I would not have told my child that. Very interesting things come up. So yeah, what I've seen have been immense changes. One of the ladies, I have a couple examples.
I love this. I love the examples because it really breaks it down and helps people to really understand. It helps me to, what's possible. It really gets me into that, golly, that's so cool. I do this.
I often say I'm a dog with a bone when it comes to personal development. I want to get to the root of something. I may want to eat the entire bone kind of thing, because I want to get to the root of things. I want real change in this world. And it seems that this is a different way to go for people to really understand themselves, for that real change to happen.
I personally, I've got a lot of Aquarius in my chart. I've got Mercury in Aquarius in my chart. I am very to the point and very straightforward.
Love it.
I don't like fluff. I don't like anything half-assed. My Chiron placement is in the 6th house of work, so I'm always overcompensating for something. Everything that I do is 50% effort and very direct. A lot of this program is really just packed with information and helping you get straight to what you need to know. Starting on day 1, as soon as you sign up, you get a reading from me to map out what you should be thinking about over the.
Let's talk about what an experience of a reading with you looks like. If I were to come in and have a reading with you, you would probably ask for my birth date and other things like that, right? And then you go through what things mean to them. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but let's talk about this. I'm curious about this topic. What should I expect with this?
A birth chart reading is different than a Chiron reading, because you can get so deep with Chiron that a birth chart reading is really just kind of an overview of your personality and just things that you should know, or just traits, strong suits, and weak points. So it'd be like a character development moment. If we were creating a novel, this is what this character is like, and this is what makes them mad, and this is how they respond in relationships. And so that's a birth chart reading. If we're doing a Chiron reading, which is part of this program that I run, If we do a Chiron reading, it's definitely about where Chiron is in your chart, what planets it's interacting with, and what story that creates for you in your head. Like, what was your childhood experience like, and what self-concept did that create, and personal belief systems did that create? You can see a lot of stuff in a birth chart. When I'm just looking at a regular birth chart, I'm not necessarily going straight to the Chiron point, because if you do that, then there's a whole nother box of worms that you open up, and it takes a long time to dive in and get correct with it. But if you do a Chiron reading, you can find out, for example, what your relationship with your father was, what your relationship with your mother was. If you had a learning disability and that created something, or a speech impediment, perhaps you saw a marriage dissolve in front of your eyes, and that's what your relationship with your parents was like. Or perhaps you felt totally overlooked and invisible in school, or maybe you were bullied. Like, you can see all of this in a birth chart.
Wow.
For example, I had one of these ladies who had a really good experience. Next time we met, she pulled up her husband, or her ex-husband, now her husband, I don't know, pulled up his chart, and I was like, oh, it looks like he was exposed to some sexual inconsistencies, or some things that he should not have been exposed to as a child. He was placed in it. He couldn't go anywhere. It was very prevalent in his childhood. And she's like, oh yeah, his dad, he's from Ecuador or something, and his dad owned a strip club, and he was there. He remembers hiding under the bar, and like there's ladies dancing all over the place, and that definitely impaired some sort of understanding of women and sexuality, and what his place is in that. So yeah, you can find out a lot of stuff like abuse and addiction, generational trauma. We can find out all sorts of things.
What are your tools if you find out somebody does have an addiction? What are your tools to help them change that?
I feel like a lot of the people that come to me have done some amount of healing already. So if they have experienced an addiction, they will typically come to me after that's over. I've yet to receive anybody who was in the midst of a crisis.
This is more evolved. Like, this is truly advanced work.
Anybody can benefit from this for sure. But I feel like you attract the people that are meant for you, the client base that is right for you. The clients that I attract are on a path, on a healing journey, and they are in step 5 or something of that journey, and they don't know where to go next, but they know that they are committed, and they're very intelligent. They want to learn, they're interested. So I attract a lot of those people, just kind of like me.
One of the people you mentioned, we were talking about the benefits or some of the outcomes you've seen with this work. You had started to talk about one of the ladies had experienced, what if, I think you were about to tell us like some of the things as a result of implementing some of the work that you do in this modules, or in the course.
I'll share 2 quick ones. One of the ladies was very standoffish at first. She was like, her childhood, and that people thought she was mean, but she was really just closed off. She started off like really quiet, and I'm like, she hates me, but we'll continue. She didn't name me at all. Anyway, the very end, she was always contributing. She's like, I'll share, and I'm like, thanks, I'm cute. But yeah, she did share something that she hadn't shared with anybody except her husband. So that was really cool to see her open up and realize some of her triggers and patterns that she hadn't thought about before. Another lady came in, and she wanted to understand more about her fears of motherhood. She had gone through a bunch of things and had been through therapy. At the end, she realized that she held resentment toward her own mother for not standing up for her children against her father. Because of that, she carried some of that with her into motherhood. She might be that way, or just doesn't want to put children in that situation. Anyway, the point is, she and her husband ended up breaking up. But after the program, she came back and realized that it was kind of me, that I was holding on to some things that I forgot, or like didn't really think about before. Now he and I are working things out.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And they have kids together. Really sweet to see.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It really is.
Thinking you're a bad, wrong, awful person, unkind, mad. I think that's a common trait, especially around people into personal development. I call them humanoids, by the way. I find that this crowd is, very much, they often think not just that they're wrong, but also that they're bad. and they're mean, like internally in their essence. You have thoughts around that? Have you seen that in
I do.
charts? You do? Okay, great.
I do. So we work a lot with, obviously, we work a lot with shame. And so the
Mhm.
top shame lady out there is Brene Brown. You should look into her if you haven't. She explains shame like this. Everybody has shame, but it's different from something like guilt. She says guilt is I did something bad, and shame is I am bad in some way. So we
Yep.
all have this I am bad, or I am wrong,
Mhm.
or something about me is broken or not right.
Mhm.
In some aspect, everyone
Huh.
feels it in a different way, in a different space.
Yeah. Well, and it seems almost like once you identify that and you have awareness on it, then the person does have more choice around changing that.
Yeah.
Unless you make
We
yourself
have
wrong
so
for
much power.
having it. Like, I'm so
It's
ashamed.
part of the step to do a program like mine, or to go into therapy, is the acknowledgement that we want to change something about ourselves, that something about the way that we think about ourselves is detrimental, not wrong, just not
Yeah.
helping.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so when you take that step, like they say, when you have an addiction or something, the first step is acknowledgement
Mhm.
that there's something wrong. And so that's when you get to the second step, which is signing up for something, to start learning and
Mhm.
getting ready, making changes. That is a big
Yeah.
change already to sign up
Yes.
for something.
And to even be sitting here listening to
100%.
this call is
Yeah.
a change in acknowledgement that I want something better, or I want to be involved or know more about myself and ways in which to heal.
What are
Yeah.
your
And I
thoughts
love
about
that for people. I love helping people who want to help themselves,
Me
and
too.
it's just awesome to see them on their journey and develop right in front of you.
so then does the chart change if they change their shame patterns? Isn't that our inner critic? How does that work?
But it's part of
And then I
you.
have to remember that it's already there.
If you go back to the story, the centaur, he's not going to be able to change the fact that he was wounded,
Wounded.
Right.
but he can change how he looks at the wound,
Yes.
or how he can
Yes.
use it to help better his life in some way. And so
Yes.
that's the part of the chart. We're all so different, and every chart
Mhm.
is so different. Everyone, even if you have like Chiron and Aries and the other person has Chiron and Aries, which by the way, Chiron lasts in Aries for 8 years, it actually spends a different amount of time in each sign. So
Mhm.
Aries is the longest time it spends in a sign. But even if you have Chiron and Aries, someone else has Chiron and Aries, it's going to be totally different from how that person perceives
That
or
is so
feels that
crazy.
energy
Uh-huh.
based on lots of different aspects. So it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
What
But the whole point is to acknowledge, accept, and then empower from there.
One of the things I had that was kind of a profound moment when I was doing this course called Clear the Noise was, who would I actually be if I had no inner critic?
Yeah.
Because shame is an inner critic. Like all these things that we're talking about are the inner narrative. I was going to an event 2 hours late on Saturday, and I was already making up a story if they looked at me a certain way, like, why are you so late?
Mhm.
No one cared.
Nobody cares. But it was like, what is it inside of me that wants to make up this internal narrative on why I'm late for this incredible event?
Right.
It makes me like go, who would I be if I had no narratives, no critic? I really would just be a very congruent being in a body. It seems that Chiron really understands all that inner narrative, all that inner critic, all that other gunk that we carry along with us. There aren't any beings in this world that seem to, very, very few, have no inner narrative. The frontal lobe of our brain causes us to have narrative always.
Chiron shows the narrative, and then it's like, what do you do from there? That was part of the reason why it developed the way it did. This program comes with this giant Chiron course, and that's a go at your own pace kind of thing. So I'm going to give them a reading, and they're going to learn about Chiron, and we're going to trauma dump everything on them. And then what, like that's why the workshops came into play too, because I was like, what, you need like some path forward. Like you can't just leave them with that. The workshops ended up being like, what is it about the human
Yes.
condition that gets us stuck in ruts like that. And immediately I'm going to the brain, which I was already fascinated with to begin with, and psychology. That's kind of how we take the steps to go forward.
Wow.
But the brain
That's
is
so
so
cool that,
powerful. Like,
yeah.
it's crazy how powerful it is. For example, I don't know if you knew this, but imagining something and remembering something fires the same neural pathways in your brain. So whether or not you have
Oh,
experienced it,
yes.
you can live it in your body as if you have.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's one step outside of that narrative. I'm not this way. I
Yes.
am this way. Or what would happen if I actually got a TED Talk like speech or something? What would it feel like to stand up on there? If you're imagining it, you are actually living it in your body and creating space for neural pathways to create,
Yeah,
That's
that's
which are
empowering.
always,
There's also
yeah.
a study that 50% of every story that somebody tells you from their past is not correct. Not all the details are correct. It's elaborated, which makes you go, okay, so even though you might have experienced it, it's just landing there in your memory or imagination still.
Except the way that you experience it really does show how you receive it, what your insecurities are that you were kind of born with. Everyone's prone to shame in certain ways, and that's what the birth chart tells you. Like, this is where you're prone. And the way that you remember certain memories will reflect that, I think. So two siblings would have a different household experience, even
Yeah.
if they had
Oh,
the same parents.
absolutely.
You can see that in the chart too. It's fascinating to see,
It is
like,
fascinating.
Oh, yeah, of
like,
course that would
for
be
example,
true.
maybe someone felt like their father was absent or something, and then the other child was like, I'm really good friends with the father.
Well,
And
that's the exact thing for my mom and her sister. Her sister loved her father and did so much with her father, and my mom just felt like he ignored her.
yeah,
And he might have had a
yeah,
favorite, right? That's exactly what they've told me.
Here's the other
yeah.
thing. If 50% of what you remember is actually true, then only 50% of what you might be remembering is true.
Right.
That's the narrative of what we're saying to each other, saying to our own selves of like, oh, I know this happened and it went down this way. Probably isn't even how it really went down. It's only 50%.
Yeah, except 50% factual, but 100%
the way
correct
that
in your experience.
In their
Yeah.
Yeah,
experience.
your
Negate it.
emotions, they're always valid. They are always telling you
Right.
something. So that's fascinating too.
Which
Yeah.
then makes you feel like you are just in a story and not in the
Yeah.
Matrix. Like, cool, I get to make all this shit up.
You might as well just live life at this point. Just live it the way you want it.
Well, this is absolutely fascinating. I really feel like there's so many healers out there that do feel wounded or constantly in shame, and that this would possibly be the key and the doorway to really understanding it in a deeper level and a level that they've never explored before.
A lot of people who gravitate specifically toward like Chiron work have something special that they can offer other people, like something
Yes.
that they're interested in healing in general. I've had a couple of healers or spiritual activists or maybe therapists come through the program. They've even asked if there's like a certification that just like to put in their toolbox, which there is starting this next round.
Oh,
But
great.
yeah, I
Very
was like, you know what,
cool.
you're right. It's probably, this is so different, abstract, niche, and like
Yes.
something that's not on the market that I feel like I should be offering. But
Yeah, I love that.
Maisy, I know you
So-
also do tarot.
Yeah.
How does that integrate with Chiron?
I haven't done a lot of integration. I did do one workshop a while ago on tarot and Chiron. It was more about certain cards we gravitate toward. And what does that say about the narrative within? I love this exercise. I do this exercise with people, for example, who don't know tarot, but like want a reading, but they don't have a question. I'm like, okay. So I just give them my deck and I'm like, pick out 5 of your favorites and then 5 of your least favorites. You don't know what it means and you don't have to, but like just based on the colors and the energy and how it feels when you look at it, what are your 5 favorites? What are your 5 least favorites? The 5 favorites tend to represent things that we are proud of within ourselves, like certain traits that we love. And the 5 least favorites tend to represent where we feel we lack.
Is that similar to integration of shadow, what Debbie Ford used to call shadow work? Is that similar? where we integrate parts of ourselves that we may not necessarily feel inclined to love.
Do we have shadow sides?
Debbie Ford said that one of the things we have is a shadow side, having that part of ourselves that we might not necessarily want to show to the world. By integrating those parts of ourselves and really bringing them into ourselves, that we can become more of the whole human. And this work sounds to me similar, but I was just wondering what your thoughts might be about
100%.
that. Okay.
It's very similar. We do a lot of shadow work. I mean, I just don't
call
it shadow work,
shadow.
but it's essentially shadow work because you're going into depths, into places that you don't really want to remember. There's a part in the program where we talk about something you did as an adult that you feel shame for. Everyone's done something they don't want to repeat. They're like, God, I can't believe I did that. Even to this day, I still hold some regret. But in some way, we might be able to tie that back, to some thing that you're trying to fulfill that you hadn't realized yet. This reminded me of this quote that I love about the shadow and just like being the whole person. And it's by Carl Jung. But he says, how can I be substantial if I do not cast a shadow? I must have a dark side also if I am to be whole.
Wow.
I love that. It's like, because you can't be substantial. You can't be more than what you pretend to be. The only way to be forceful and substantial is to embrace both sides.
I think
like that.
The people that resist that they have a shadow or have shame, I call that a spiritual bypass, by the way.
Yeah.
And I think those are the most challenging people because it's like, come on, they're like, nope, I'm good, I'm fine, and they just kind of boogie on in life. And then something will eventually wake them up because they won't look at it, would rather stay busy and not actually go within. Those people kind of fascinate me. Really? You don't think you have any shame anywhere in your life ever?
Right?
Yeah.
Those people are lying. Everyone has it.
But it's a part of us and it's not a wrongness. In fact, in your work, it's truly a strongness. And that's what's really cool about it, because then somebody doesn't have to deny any bits and pieces of them and they can receive themselves entirely. I mean, that's got to be the value of this work, and it's profound. I mean,
what you described right there is living authentically. That's like the ultimate goal, is to be able to live with authenticity, to step into yourself truly, wholly, confidently.
Valentina says, acceptance of me, exclamation point. And Dana says, accepting all parts and all pieces. Just the thought of that feels empowering. Just the simple concept of that. I do feel like I've done a lot of work, but I also feel like sometimes I can be guilty of a little bit of spiritual bypass.
Just the fact that you're guilty of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, oh no, I'm great. I'm good. I'm like, life is great. And then all of a sudden I turn around and I'm getting hit in the head with the 2x.
But it is a constant work. I think about that too. I've done so much work on myself. And in doing this program, I also do these exercises with the group too. And I've done some of them multiple times.
Yes.
And I still find out parts of me to help me complete my own story. But there are moments where I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty cool. And then I run into something where I'm like, I have an issue again, to take a step back. I just know how to better handle them.
Yeah.
Even if I still feel the same on the inside, know how to approach it with authenticity and with health in mind.
It's funny, I did this line of work where blame, shame, regret, and guilt all went together in a category called distractor implants. And they are distractors from truly being a coherent being. But we aren't a coherent being. So it would make perfect sense that we would have to really see all of this to become all of us.
And if you're not embracing the shame, the guilt, the whatever, then you're bringing on other inhibitory.
Yeah, there's a layer on top of it, right?
Then you're bringing in other traits and patterns that are just to cover up, like the people pleasing and depression and anxiety, like all of those things are layers to avoid
Blame,
issue.
shame,
So if you're
regret,
not
and
going to face
guilt.
the issues, then you're going to have other issues and you're going to think it's my anxiety. No,
Mhm.
it's your avoidance of the real problem.
Wow.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant.
I-
I love how you said that because, in fact, I've even talked to people and like, okay, well, you have like this layer, like say they're struggling with money, right? But because, and then they kind of know why they're struggling with money. Well, then what's the narratives? What are the points of view around that? And were those created? And it's like just kind of this like, layer upon layer upon layer,
Yeah.
or it
I
could
mean,
just
it's
be
like,
blame, shame,
Well,
regret, guilt.
here, let me go to this comment, and I think this will help us.
Mhm.
So Valentina says, "Where does it end? Will it ever end? Will the work ever end? I'm tired." Laugh out loud.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's maybe
And I
where the
think,
conversation should be,
yeah.
right? It's like, okay, great. Yeah. Yes, it can.
How do you approach that?
I think that it's a lifelong work,
Sure.
but I do think that it gets easier when tools in place to help you. So,
Yes.
part of this program, or like what I do, is just helping people find the tools
Yeah.
to help themselves.
Because either way, it's going to perpetuate. So might as
Yeah.
well live with your best, your best tools, your best guidance, like, the eyes wide open.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Like, knowing going in.
I don't feel that
Yeah.
I'm wounded or suffering every day, but I know there's that some of that's still there kind of thing, right? I'm like not in
Yeah.
denial of it. And I think that's the point of it is get to the raw essence of it. And I think that what
Right.
Chiron work really does is get you to the raw essence of it. And so you can say, great, I receive that. I see it. I have awareness on it. And I'm going to make active choices and change my brain and my neurosynapses around this. That's
Right.
how I see
That's
it.
kind of why I like when people are like, "Oh, it's my anxiety." I'm like, "Okay, but like what is your anxiety telling you about the deeper root, because
Mhm.
for example, you're not just anxious all the time. Like, when do you get anxious? What triggers it? And like, how is that similar or different to other moments in your life previously, when you were growing up, what the shoes that you're trying to fill that you think are large, and
Mhm.
that's kind of where does that stem. And
Mhm.
so I think having the tools, having the understanding of what it is, and then having the tools to give yourself better responses when it does happen, that's where the change happens. And then it becomes a little more a little easier to go through
Yeah. So I
life.
know we've talked about the program. I just want to bring it up so that we can share it in detail.
Yeah,
And
I
as I
I feel like I've brought it up a lot. This
well, I
current,
think
but we were just talking about
this
Chiron, and I'm like, yeah, this is how I
Yeah.
do.
yeah, this is your
Um,
core work. I mean, it's
Not many people are doing this type of work. So, I mean,
Mhm.
finding the ins and outs of how you're utilizing this work and what you're doing
Yeah.
with it is the core essence of this conversation. So, yes, we brought it up a lot, but because not like you said yourself, not many people are going in, and it's so niche and it's so different that there was no other way around it.
So niche. It's so niche.
Yeah.
I mean,
to
this
talk
is
about how
really,
it really works.
really
Yeah.
specific work. And to be honest, I mean, you pay what, $250 just for a PT or a massage, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to get like to the root of shame that could change you for your entire life is quite a profound thing. And it sounds like you can get to the message of it in just this one-on-one session that you also are offering with the package.
For the
Yeah.
first 5 people, so I might
Yeah,
add.
and we will remove all of this if you,
Once we book up the 5.
yeah,
Yeah.
once we book up the
Yeah. So
5.
if you feel called, definitely choose
Jump
it.
on
Yeah.
this because I think it's a really interesting way to look at life.
Do you have the link to put in the chat, or should I just put it in
I
the?
can put it in chat as well.
Actually, I just did it.
Oh,
Just
okay, cool.
Nice.
I just wrote it out. So anyway, it's in the chat. But yeah, so this is The entirety of the program includes like a group aspect, a support aspect, then the Chiron course and the workshops. This offer is like at least a $500 value
Yeah.
offer, but it is just the Chiron course and the one-on-one Chiron reading for
Wow.
people who sign up. But within the course, you have like 25 plus videos, like it says right there, on literally everything you could ever want to learn about Chiron and reading a birth chart. Like, again, I told you I
Nice.
am thorough. So there's a lot of
Mhm.
information. It'll take you a minute. And then all sorts of downloadable guides and resources, like a
30.
reading list.
Wow.
And then I offer office hours every Wednesday, just everybody in the program, just in case like
Mhm.
people have questions. And yeah, and there you go. And then you have
Yeah,
access to it for whenever.
forever. Yeah.
Nice.
So just to go through, it's the Chiron reading if you're among the first 5, and we will remove that.
That's one-on-one with me.
If you don't see that on the sales page, then that means you are number 6 or more. And then the course alone is more than 25 videos. And as you can see from this conversation, my guess is they are really in depth from the knowledge of Maisy. There's also PDFs, there's resources, there's guides, and then she has weekly office hours. So you can always get your questions answered. And then, of course, there's continued
Yes,
education
article posts.
with regular article posts. It starts in January, so you guys have a little bit of time to look at this. But if this calls you, I really think that you're being called to this. But this is cool.
And then you have
Really cool.
lifetime access. And of course, if you're being called, then jump on it, because although it starts on the 27th, the people that might sign up, and you might be number 6. So you definitely want to be 1 through 5, because that one-on-one Chiron reading sounds amazing. It sounds like something like, I really want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. In
It
fact,
just
I might
sounds,
do this.
yeah. And just because of the curiosity, I mean,
Yeah.
just the sheer fact of like really,
You
I
could
mean,
get to something that I may have never even looked at.
exactly.
Like I'm just kind of
And there is,
spiritually bypassing it or something.
right? Dana says, is there a payment option?
Oh, okay. Yes, we can make one. Or no, it goes through.
It goes
Macy's
through
site.
Maisy, so that
We can ask her.
so our
Uh-huh.
people are used to having a 2-pay option. The first payment would be half the payment is 30 days later, or I guess before the 27th, or before they do their first whatnot. But completely up to you. No, not on the spot, but we'll let you know if there is a payment option. We'll write you
Yeah,
in.
I mean, we can. What I was thinking immediately is if you want to do, you could pay the half, 47, whatever that is, to a PayPal. I don't know if people have.
Yeah,
but
well-
I might PayPal email, and if I just get like 123 or whatever it is, then we can stay in contact, and I'll get them all signed up, and then we can figure out the next payment.
Great.
So I'll just put that in the
Great.
chat.
Awesome.
Okay, so my
great.
PayPal email is contact@tarotbymaisy.com.
And they can just contact you there too.
Awesome.
Yeah, they could, or you
Yeah.
could just
So if
email
you've
me,
got
like, figure it out.
questions
Yeah.
and if you feel a little hesitant, maybe email first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
I'm very friendly.
Yeah.
We can tell. I was going to say that to the audience too. I was like, as you could tell, she seemed very friendly and definitely there to answer questions.
Just so you guys know, so I found Maisy before I was even working with Leonka, and I just had a vibe. I just saw some Instagrams and went to her site. And I was
She's
like,
like, I just
have a
want to talk to
vibe.
her.
I just have a vibe for this girl, and I don't really know exactly why. So I kept her name on the list, but and she said later in the year, and I thought, okay, well then later in the year, and then and then you were on our last summit, and you were just so good.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's some conversations I can go forever, and there's no stopping me. But with this, I was like new information, and I love new information. I love learning so much. So when it's like, yes. So I just felt like there is something resonant. Now I really feel like I get it. even in our first interview, I feel like I still felt so incomplete on like, okay, I get Chiron, I get astrology, I get that can help us, but how does it help us? And that
Yeah.
I really feel like we've answered that question. So I feel fulfilled. You so
Good. I'm
much.
glad. And I'm glad I was helpful and that you were drawn to me. It is kind of
Mhm.
funny because you reached out and it just like wasn't
Right
happening. And
timing.
I feel like it just happened at the right time. So
Absolutely.
You're so
Absolutely.
amazing. And the more we talked to you, it just is like interesting. This is really, really interesting
Yeah.
work. I'm really wondering how my work's going to evolve with astrology and tarot in the future, because it is like something that I'm just like, I'm just putting fingers in right now because I'm a little more
yeah.
into the more pragmatic, the science, the brain and how it works and the neuro. And so we'll see how, and it just seemed a little too out there for me,
At
even though I'm
first.
not out there, totally out there
This
with
is the
Yeah.
show of
galactic
woo.
channels of woo. So
But I love how,
Well, I'm
great,
glad I could
yeah.
open your eyes
Yes,
a
thank
little bit
you.
more.
great. So you guys, thank you. And if you guys have questions or need anything, you can always contact us at team at Haute Hustle
That's right.
as well.
And the special offer for Maisy will also, if you're listening on the replay, will be in the description below. So we put it in the chat, but it will also be in the description below, or it will be in the newsletter. Receiving the newsletter, look in your junk mail. Maybe you've gotten our messages sent there and just pop that over to the inbox. That will ensure that you're getting our messages. And then also, if you're not, you can always just re-sign up. We've got new fun gifts for 2025 at houtehustle.com. And that will get you the newsletter with Macy's beautiful face and her special offer button right there, right next to it. So definitely. And if nothing else, if you're still not getting anything and you still want information, you can always message me at team@houtehustle.com.
Yep. Perfect. Maisy,
Awesome.
thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you for having me. And I look forward to connecting with all of you.
Yes.
If anybody
Yeah.
wants to connect.
Yeah. Well, gosh, I mean, a single reading probably is right at 250. And it's so great. I'm just so grateful that you
Yeah.
produced this course for us. And I feel like it's
Hopefully we get much more people educated
yeah.
and out
Yeah.
there. Yeah, sharing more goodness about Chiron.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me on, and we'll keep in touch. And everybody else,
Yeah. Well, I'm
see you
sure
later.
we'll see you back in 2025.
Yeah,
Bye,
would love
Maisy.
that.
Yes.
Okay,
Bye. Guys, just a couple announcements before we wrap. Today is lounge day.
Yay.
Lots
Lots of people say it's 11:11 and 1:11 and all the numbers. Of course,
you
numerology.
ever want to jump on the lounge, you can find it at lounge.houtehustle.com. And what other, guys, please look at Tarek's interview and offer. It was absolutely phenomenal.
And he gives us an amazing, what was it?
Yeah, it's a
95%.
wealth course. It's very different from other wealth courses, and it is 90% off, $888 down to $97.
Super limited offer.
Yeah,
Very,
but
very generous
only
of
going to
him.
be up for 3 weeks. So if you are called to learn and really seek around money, then we've got that offer out. And we had Teresa on last week as well. That was like, puddle at the end and couldn't even like talk about her offer. But
she worked with Dragon Energy. It was she did an activation for us. If you have missed it, definitely check out that replay where and it's kind of toward the end. But if you nothing else, at least check out the replay where she does this dragon activation. Woo wee! Where I could hear her in my head days after.
I know.
It was
amazing. I went
amazing.
back to re-listen to
Did you?
see if I got the same vibe. I was just, wow, this just feels like letting go. It was cool. Yeah.
A lot about surrender.
A lot.
Yes.
A lot. So if you are interested in surrender, there's that as well. On Thursday, we have Janet Dewar coming.
Yeah.
who I have actually personally connect with. She has helped me a little bit with my moving forward
Yay.
movements. And I'm excited to see her on Thursday. So I'm going to call this a wrap, and I'll see you loungies and houties in lounge.
Have a great one,
Everyone.
Bye.